Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Strategic Planning Committee. Before we start, I'd like to welcome some sixth formers that are joining us on work experience. We've got Ola and Marley, there we go, and I'd written it down as well, and Pranav, and James at the back. They're here to see how our planning committee is run. I didn't say a well-run planning committee, I did say planning committee, but we will carry on. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence.
Thanks, Chair. The only apologies are from Councillor Richard Foster, with Councillor Robert Windass acting as substitute.
There's Robert. Welcome, Robert. Morning. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meetings. Any comments? And Councillor Warnock.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to speak. It's only because I was at that meeting, and so the minutes aren't quite accurate, and I'm suspecting it's more to do with AI than officer error. The acronym for the reclaimed asphalt product is not WRAP. It's not that sort of wrap. It's RAP. It's not that sort of wrap either. So it's RAP. So just for accuracy, because the Joe public might look at it and wonder what WRAP is. It's on page 7 to 8 on the minutes.
7 to 8.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Arnold. Any other amendments or comments? Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Anybody got any? Councillor Brown.
Not material, but I'm a member of the Council for Protection of Rural England. It's commented on one of the applications.
Thank you. Any others? Right, thank you very much. We move on to the first item, or the only item, agenda item 4, planning application for a solar farm. Emma.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for land north of Brompton on Swale. Full planning permission for a solar farm, including the associated infrastructure, cabling, landscape and access. There are a couple of updates to my report. Firstly, yes, sorry, apologies.
Everybody here now?
Can everybody hear me? I'll try and shout if not. A bit closer still.
Really on top of you. Like,
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so update to report. You may have noticed there was a typographical error in paragraph 10.10 where I've rather overstated that it would be power for 120,000 homes, which should read 10,000 homes. That was in paragraph 11.3 of the report, and that was the figure that was used in the planning balance. You may have received, or I believe you've received an email from the developer which set out the public benefits of the proposal since the report was published. That actually sets out the actual number of homes is 17,884 that would be powered by the proposed development. So hopefully that makes that clear and that the balance has been made in terms of the 10,000 homes, not the 120,000 homes in the paragraph 10.10. Paragraph 10.35, this is to do with the duty in regards to the national park. It states that the duty is complied with. We should read the duty is not engaged as there's no impact on the national park landscape. And then in paragraph 10.42, it should also state in the conclusion that it is in compliance with local plan policy CP2. Since the report was written, there have been 3 further letters of representation received. 2 have pointed out the typographical error in the report and request that I brought that to the attention of the committee. The main issues in the representation are already covered in the report, but there were additional points raised with regards to cumulative impact, not just in this locality, but across the wider region. The apparent lack of grid capacity, inefficiencies in the use of the proposed solar technology, which would require battery storage, a lack of consideration of other types of solar provision, small modular reactors, the removal of hedgerows potentially requiring separate permissions, and that they felt that there'd been misrepresentation of public support and a lack of scrutiny by North Yorkshire Council with regards to solar farm applications. In addition, I just wanted to clarify the comments from the Brompton Parish Council, as they were not accurately set out within the report. I'm not going to read them verbatim. I've just taken some points out of them. The Parish Council did state that the proposal that's come forward is larger than those that were considered by the residents when they went to public consultation, and that they've had no further ability to comment before the application was in. They raised concerns over a loss of agricultural land and the timescale. 40 years is rather a long time to lose the land, and that other options such as using roofs of existing buildings should be considered. They also raised concerns over the vehicle numbers, and they object to the use of Gate Lane for any traffic. And they made comments with regarding to landscaping, requirement for further landscaping, and the proximity of the site to the Persimmon Homes construction site. Also raising issues with regards to access to public rights of way, impact on wildlife, and again, they don't believe that alternative sites have been considered. So if I go on to the application site itself, so the application site is in red. Apologies for the wobbly line, my drawing's not particularly brilliant. This is connection which goes to the Skibby, sorry, go back. The Skibby solar farm, which you can see on the plan here. This would be connected into the solar farm itself, which would be here, cabling across the A1 and again on the other side. The housing development that's referred to is this site here, which is presently under construction. Brompton Bridge, which is one of the listed buildings in the appraisal, is here. Brompton Conservation Area is at the bottom of the slide, and the other listed building is off the top of the screen. So here's the block plan, which shows the location of the panels, fencing, plant, cabling, and CCTV positions. There are 2 points of access to the site. First one comes off the slip road off the A1 here, and the second comes off Gaverley Road here. So just let me 1 second. So the police did note, raise comments about the security of the access points. This is in relation to not having the information of how access would be controlled into the site at these 2 points. And that whilst there is the CCTV proposed, there is no details within the application of how they would be monitored should access be obtained. They've requested that that be provided by a condition. They are happy with the rest of the security for the site. Okay, there was also comments about the proximity of the plant to residential properties. This plant is within the site and amongst and around the top edges of the solar panels themselves, so not close to the residential properties. These are connected to the substation which also serves Skibby Solar Farm. So these are the public rights of way that are in or around the site. So as you can see, the site itself is in red. There is one footpath which cuts right across the site, the remainder around the edges. Okay, this is the landscaping plan. So you can see that there is additional planting going in terms of grassland and also woodland plants, belts, and additional planting around parts of the site. So these are the details of the internal access track construction, which is to be a crushed aggregate track, which is on both sides of the site to allow construction access. These are details of the solar panels. As you see, they are ground mounted, so the land underneath remains free for whatever purposes, so you can have grazing of sheep, etc. This is the fencing details. Now, the fencing was altered during the course of the application to now it is proposed to be deer fencing as shown in the picture just at the bottom of the slide. There's a number of satellite dishes which are to be mounted on 3-metre poles. And then there are a number of CCTV cameras around the site. These must face into the site and not into residential properties, but this is covered by other legislation, not that of the planning authority. Sorry, do apologise. Power station details. So these are basically almost like a little container, very similar to the spare parts container that are on site and the substation detailing. So if I just take you through a few photographs of the site. So this is the photos of the application site taken from the footpath entrance towards High Gaveley Farm. So this is on the east of the A1. So this is the footpath. It runs along the edge here and through, and the application site is across here. And again, you can see it here. This is also taken from the footpath, but further along the footpath. So again, it is open countryside. It is undulating in places, so you don't often get the long range views. This is the footpath view from to the north along the A1, and also from the bend on the slip road. So that's the opposite side of the application site. So that's the site to the west. Again, this is the view into the fields from the footpath when you're travelling south along the A1. The site is beyond this hedgerow here, and this is the site itself, taken from the hedgerow itself. So this is from the southern boundary looking towards the application site. Again, as you can see, you'll see part of the application site, but because of the change in land levels, you wouldn't see it as a whole. And this is the access track against the western boundary. So this is Skeeby Solar Farm, which you can see in the distance, and planting that they've put in. And again, this is Skeeby's solar farm here, which you can see in the distance and from the bridle path towards Skeeby Solar Farm. It's about 400 metres at the nearest point from the proposed solar farm. This is looking to the north of the western section of the site from the footpath. And then these are the fields across to the east on Gaveley Road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have two speakers. First is Councillor Warnock, please. Oh, it's a question. Who will we take a question?
So this Councillor Walker, who's a public speaker, it will come down.
Yeah, if you'd like to ask a question now, please. Yes. Sorry.
I was waiting for the question because some other member might ask the question anyway, but I just wanted further clarification as to what the overall biodiversity net gain is on this site, because I've read the report, and if I was a member of the public, I don't think I'd understand the actual final figures.
So these are set out in paragraph 10.28 of the report. So it's in habitat units. So there's a 43.67% gain in habitat units, 10.3%, 38% gain in hedgerow units, and a 20.48% gain in watercourse units across the site.
That's what I read as well. So what's the overall? If there was a single figure to describe the biodiversity net gain, what's the overall figure?
You can't provide a single figure
Okay.
because they're different forms of habitat, so
Okay,
therefore you can't.
So it's, you were gonna answer that way.
Fiona?
Yeah, unfortunately, the UK, the English planning system, they're not like, you can't add them all up because they're different types of habitat units. So,
okay.
you know, watercourse can't be traded for
I-
hedgerows, can't be traded for woodland.
Yes, so other applications have given figures like, there's one with the council at the moment, the total biodiversity net gain.
Councillor Warnock, it's public,
Question time.
well, it's
I'll
not
go-
really questions. We can't do backwards and forwards.
Maybe
at
another
this
member will
stage.
pick up my thread here because
Yeah.
I don't think it's clear. I know what you're saying, officers, but I don't think it's clear from a member of the public point of view.
Thank you very much. Our second speaker is Francis Nicholson, please. The agent.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak in support of today's application. My name is Frances Nicholson and I'm the Development Director at Harmony Energy, who is the applicant for this application. Throughout the course of the application, we have worked closely with the case officer and appreciate the council's diligence in handling the application. We welcome the case officer's recommendation for approval and would like to take this opportunity to further echo the points made within the committee report, which concludes by stating that it is therefore considered that the development would not result in significant harm that would outweigh the substantial public benefits of a renewable energy scheme. I've no doubt that everyone here will be fully aware of our global efforts to mitigate our impact on the climate, such as the UK government's Clean Power 2030 plan, and as locally acknowledged by the North Yorkshire Council themselves, declaring a climate emergency in April 23, with aspirations to be net zero by 2034. The Clean Power 2030 report identifies that national solar requirements accounts for 47 gigawatts of total capacity for the whole of the UK energy system by 2030, of which there is currently only 16.6 gigawatts. And consequently, there is a need to accelerate our deployment by 3 times to hit the targets of the Clean Power 2030 plan. This scheme already benefits from a grid connection into the Skeeby substation. We can connect as soon as we get planning permission. If we are happy, if we do get planning permission, we can connect immediately after a construction period. And we will provide enough energy to supply the average annual electricity demands of 17,884 homes each year. Furthermore, it will also displace 18,367 tonnes of carbon dioxide per year, which is the equivalent of taking 11,000 cars off the road, supporting cleaner air too. As demonstrated by the case officer's recommendation, the proposed development is in full accordance with all relevant local and national planning policies, and this is further reinforced by the fact that there are no statutory consultee objections to this planning application. The application site comprises a mix of grades 3A and 3B agricultural land, so best and most versatile and non-best and most versatile. The majority of the land around the Skeeby substation is a mix of all grade 3, 3A, 3B. We're not quite sure, it just says grade 3 is on the maps at a national level. And therefore, it would not be possible to identify a site with a lower agricultural grading. In addition, the site is outside of any sensitive landscape designations, and Natural England have raised no objection to the scheme. Ultimately, the site's land take would only take 0.007 of the farmland from Yorkshire and Humber alone out of production for a temporary period of 40 years. Beneficially, the proposals would lead to a biodiversity net gain of 43.67% in habitat units, 10.38% gain in hedgerow units, and 20.48% gain in watercourse units. We've worked closely with residents, Brompton Parish Council, and to minimise the impact on local residents. I note that the comments made by Brompton Parish Council about the scheme being much larger in scale than than at the initial stage. That's not true, and we've sought to clarify that with Brompton Parish Council, and they've subsequently thanked us for our response and clarification. We've included a robust landscaping scheme to screen the development, and we've done preemptive planting for the most impacted properties, which is already in place. There's a £20,000 community benefit fund each
Just
year
come up, please.
and £107,000 per year in business rates to North Yorkshire Council per annum.
Members, questions to officers, please. Councillor Brown.
I've got four, I'm afraid. Firstly, that community commitment of £20,000 a year, how is that secured and what's the nature of that?
It's not secured by the planning permission. It's not necessary to make it reasonably acceptable, and that doesn't meet the requirements of the terms for conditions, so it's not secured. It's something that the company have put forward as a benefit to the local community.
Something we're reasonably confident will take place, but is not actually put in the condition. Is that what I'm saying?
It will not be secured by the planning decision, and I highly recommend you don't take that into account in coming up to your planning balance and your final decision. It may come forward, it may not, and it will not be secured by the permission.
Second point is sheep grazing and maintenance. What are the arrangements for that? And are we dealing with a site that's going to be sprayed with pesticides for 30, 40 years, or are we dealing with a site that's going to be maintained by sheep grazing and also produce some food?
Again, that is not information within the application. They have submitted a soil management plan, which shows that the soil will be at a better quality by the end of the 40 years through their maintenance provision, but I can't confirm how, in terms of sheep grazing, whether they will choose to graze sheep or not. It will be entirely at the landowner's discretion whether they wish to do that or not. They may be able to provide clarification.
Extremely disappointing not to be clear on that, because we've asked every single one of these applications, and it's not just me that's asked about it. It's a critical factor as whether we can produce food by other swings, but it might.
Well, we don't normally ask for clarification of the applicant, but in this case, I'm willing to.
Thank you, Chair. So it's all covered, or would be covered in the landscape management plan. The Skibby solar farm next door, that isn't dealt with via pesticides either, and that's in the landscape management plan. So this would be no different.
So do I understand it to be, it will be maintained by grazing, etc., and there won't be any pesticides sprayed on the site, is that what we say?
So there won't be any pesticides, and in terms of grazing, that is up to the landowners. They've got the opportunity in their leases to graze if they want to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got two more questions, I'm afraid.
Oh.
The tree planting, we've got a range of supposedly native species. Was any thought given to planting trees that might increase food supply, such as apples, pears, plums, nuts? I mean, it strikes me as strange that we have the opportunity to increase food production in different ways on site, and we've gone for decoration rather than offsetting that concern some members have.
I'm not aware that any consideration was provision of fruit trees. They do take up extra maintenance, etc. The native planting they proposed is an acceptable species, so there's no reason why we would choose not to accept that arrangement. But whether fruit planting is appropriate in that location, again, that's not under consideration within this application.
Final question. How much is the storage capacity on site of the batteries? What's the total storage capacity?
You want to give me a minute to find that, because it's not something that I know off the top of my
Can we
head.
come back to you? Oh,
Right. Right, thank you. Councillor Cattaner.
Does what? I noticed that one of the objections from Brompton on Swale was cumulative impact. I need to, are you able to clarify when we would reach that stage? Is it the number of potential solar farms in a small area or in the whole of North Yorkshire?
There's no local plan policy for cumulative impact, nor is there anything in the national guidance. It's dealt with on a case by case basis. So again, it's to do with what the impact of those solar farms in proximity. As it says in the government guidance, they're not expecting that the percentage of land to be used for solar would be more than 1% of the country. But obviously we have to look at the cumulative impact in terms of the landscape, highways, etc. So they're taken as matters which are considered as part of the application on a case by case merits.
Thank you. Supplementary? Nope. Councillor Peacock.
Yes, thank you. What I'm sort of thinking of is the maintenance of, say, the accesses. I mean, I know we've got a traffic plans and everything there, but that's for the construction. But what are we putting anything into a 106 agreement regarding the maintenance of the accesses to the site as well as the actual site itself? I know we've had questions about farming and not doing pesticides, but I'm meaning of the whole site. And if you want to take that further, of the biodiversity section. I mean, some of these hedgerows could just die or anything. So I need, what are we actually doing to ensure that everything is maintained? And are we putting a decent, strong 106 agreement in place for that?
There is nothing within the section 106 to do with the highways maintenance. It wasn't raised as an issue by the neither the National Highways or the Local Highways Authority. There is conditions. There is the potential that you could add a condition in relation to the taking a survey of the roads at this point before works, and then obviously they would be liable for any impact to put that right at a later date. That can be dealt with by an additional condition, but it's not within the section 106 agreement. In terms of the hedgerows, the section 106 agreement does cover the biodiversity net gain. That does have to be provided for a period of 30 years. So within that, you would need to replace and maintain the planting in order to meet the requirements of the mandatory biodiversity net gain for the 30-year period. That is within the section 106 agreement.
Thank you. Supplementary? Go ahead.
Maybe I got it wrong, but you seem to show a photograph of nearly like a funny track. Was that just a footpath that was leading up to it about halfway through them photographs, like a more or less just rough grass and things, and you said there was this track there? And then I think the other thing is, I seem to think, I've written it down, but I probably can't find it now. Something that that was mentioned, Park something Lane. What was that referring to? Is that also, if they're going to use that, is that going to maintain? Was the Park Lane, was it a highways or was it an unclassified road, which we know how difficult it is to get our highway people to look at that. So I'm just very concerned about all the access leading up and whether we've actually covered all angles to this and actually make something a bit stronger in our 106 agreement.
I'll just get the plan of the site up. A little bit. So there are only two access points to the site. One is off the slip road off the A1, and the second is off Gavelly Road itself. There is no access to the site from Parkgate Lane, which is what Brompton and Swale Parish Council were concerned about. So there are only 2 access points to the site. That is not included within that.
And they're highway maintained.
Yes, they're both highway maintained, up until the point, obviously, that they go onto private land.
Thank you.
Councillor Timothy.
Thank you, Chair. But my question was just to confirm that that there's no battery development, no battery storage on the site, and that's been answered already. That's Councillor Brown's question.
Thank you. Councillor Hugo, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Well, a couple of questions, but first of all, on the plan, we've got that field at the top that is clearly left white. I believe, is that going, is all that going into trees? Or I know you did, but you should sort of point round the side of the field. Or is it left blank of panels because it's something else is going in?
Are we talking about this field here? Which field are we?
Well, yeah, both ones. Yeah, there's one in green and one white.
This one here,
That's,
that's where
That one, yeah.
there is a house in the middle of that field and
Is there?
some stable buildings, so obviously it wouldn't be appropriate
So
to.
that's not part of the application.
No, it's not part of the application.
So the top one that's going in, it's going to be
The
planted.
one above that is grassland, and then there are tree belts, which are the darker green, which you can see. So the light green is grassland planting and the darker green is tree planting.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask another one, please, Chairman? Just, I'm just trying to get, as we always do, the best and most versatile land. How, as an officer, have you sort of set that against the policies? I just, not only for myself, but also for public. It's not always obvious how it's happened, because clearly we have got some 3A in here, haven't we? Could just explain it a little bit, please?
So it's a balance. In the planning balance, we have to weigh up. There is a temporary loss of the best and most versatile agricultural land. We have to balance that against the benefit of the proposal in terms of the benefits that provides in terms of energy provision, sustainable development. The council's policy is clear that we should try and protect that land, but again, it does have to be against that balance. And so the government guidance is obviously that there is great weight to be given to the provision of the renewable energy sources, and we do have to weigh that up in the decision-making process. This land is not lost permanently, it's lost temporarily for a period of 40 years, in which during that period of time, because of the soil management requirements of the that are put forward in the application, the land at the end of that 40 years would be of better quality for future growth of plants and crops than it is presently.
thank you. Councillor Packham.
Thanks, Chair. We seem to be talking about a load of things that aren't material considerations in these questions. I just wanted to go back to one point that was raised, and that relates to the Section 106 agreement and the money that was to be paid to the community by the developer. Am I right in thinking that we could not include that in a 106 agreement because it would be contrary to planning law, basically?
From a legal perspective, it's not directly related to the development, so I wish it was something we could secure, but under the current legal planning system, it wouldn't be reasonable, and if they appealed, that specific provision would be unlikely to win that appeal. So I wouldn't recommend that we change the recommendation in that regard.
Supplementary. Councillor Swanwick, please.
Could I just ask, Chair, where the grid connection is on your plan and why is it there?
So the grid connection is, this is, I can't actually show you exactly where the grid connection is, but this is the area that would be used for laying the connections between the two. So the grid connection is the substation, which is at the Skeeby Solar Farm. And that has been chosen because that is the point where it is firstly able to provide the amount of grid capacity for the solar farm. It doesn't require any upgrading. It's in a suitable location because there is a distance element to that, and therefore it is the only viable solution in terms of not requiring upgrades to other parts of the grid to enable to take on that level of energy connection.
I'm grateful for that, Chair, but the reason I'm asking is because very often the applications are limited to by the location of the grid connection, and the grid connection is due to a former use, very often of a very different sort of electricity generation, and it's very useful to know because of this question of further applications and the question that has been raised, which has been ruled out as not being necessarily eligible for discussion, but nonetheless is important, I would imagine, to residents, which is the cumulative impact of several applications around the same grid connection.
Councillor Windass, there wasn't a, before we move on, Neil, wasn't a question there? Sorry, I missed it. Thank you for that. Councillor Swanee, supplementary anymore? Fine. Councillor Windass.
Thank you, Chair. There was mention, excuse me, of public rights of way and footpaths around that area. Do any of them cross the proposed site? And if so, what is going to happen to them? Are they going to be extinguished or are they going to be rerouted?
There's only one public right of way that crosses through the site, which is the one that goes past Gaverley House Farm, which is this one up here. There is no intention to reroute or restrict access to that public right of way. They have provided information on how that will be protected from glint and glare, etc. And the public rights of way team have raised no objections to that situation.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Windass. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask the map in section 10.22, the non-agricultural land that you've got listed, I presume by the shapes that are on the map that is mostly hedgerows?
Yeah, it's the field boundaries between, and obviously there may be water courses and things along those boundaries, but they are the boundary lines, yes.
I've got a second question, if that's okay, please, Chair. Yeah, in the update to the report, you mentioned that there had been some, there were some concerns about misrepresentation of public comments. Can I ask, were those the comments from the parish council that you outlined at the top, or were there other issues?
No, I'm actually not clear on what the representation was referring to. They stated that the council had submitted a public notice that there was huge support for this scheme, but I'm not entirely sure that they had that even related to this scheme. So they feel like that's been misrepresented because there was only 3 letters of support, but I'm not aware of any public and information that's gone out from the council in that respect.
Any further? Councillor Peacock.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm on the same subject that I mentioned before, so I'll just a bit more clarification. On page 36, access track section details, which has been submitted to you. Well, I know that highways usually mention our roads or sometimes our bridleways, but I've never heard them maintain tracks. So which track are we dealing with? Because that would probably be more likely the track I was referring to for maintaining.
So the access tracks are actually not highways maintainable. They are internal access tracks between the solar panels themselves to allow vehicles to obviously construct and also maintain those. So they're the ones that are shown on the plan in brown. So they have, and it's very difficult to see, but there are access tracks internally throughout the site. Which are the access tracks which are to be created. That's what the access track details have been provided for. So they are not highway maintainable accesses.
Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to ask about paragraph 1020, and you referred to the written ministerial statement, and it's referring to BMV land, and it talks about nationally significant infrastructure projects, and it sort of alludes to the fact that this statement is referring to those larger scale projects. Am I reading that correctly?
So NSIPs are of a much larger scale than what we've got before us. That statement is written in relation to towards the NSIPs rather than the smaller scale developments, but it is relevant in terms of the content within it.
Yes, but in terms of those NSIPs, I mean, just as an example, what sort of area in terms of hectares would they be dealing with?
I did look into this matter because I prepared a EIA screening opinion before this application was submitted. So I think it'd be approximately another 20 hectares would sort of 10 or more hectares of solar panels might push it into the NSIP category. Right. So we're not really far away. So I think it's 50 megawatts and this one's 39.3. So
it's not too far away, is it, in terms of?
Not very far away. It'd be another.
So I think what I'm going to ask following on is that if this were an NSIP project, you would be looking, I suppose, differently at that statement because they're talking about single schemes. And we've got this scheme here, but when we're talking about cumulative impact and the loss of land, so we're losing quite a number of hectares of grade A land. And we've got other sites, obviously, in the county. This one that's 400 metres away has already been approved, and there will be others. So although we don't have like a single project that would fall within the NSIP category, we're still getting that cumulative impact. So if we looked at it in the round in terms of the loss of land, yes, we're not losing that grade 3 land, that top grade land in one project, but we are potentially losing it cumulatively over a number of sites.
Yes, you cumulatively are losing the land a piece at a time. Unfortunately, the NSIP regime is quite specific. It's a completely different way of determining applications. So you have to look at this and its merits in terms of the cumulative impact in terms of this solar farm with those that surround it, yes, but not the wider regime in terms of solar farms.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more, oh, sorry, Fiona.
I think that just for context, something's an NSIP application or not, I would say, the material considerations, etc., all the same. They'd be considering the same things as we are. It's just that we wouldn't be the determining body. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that NSIP threshold for purposes of making a decision.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, can we move to debate? Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I think each one of these needs looking at its merits. I think I voted for 4 of them and against 2. So I'm trying very hard to do that. In terms of 4 for this, 39 megawatts of power is pretty significant. And I think it's a real help that the connection point is so close. You haven't got long distance of cables travelling. And I think it's important that that connection site is at capacity after this is finished. So it puts a cap on the risk of endless cumulative applications to go into the same site. We've heard that it's actually that this was limited to 39 because that's what this grid connection can take. The site's alongside a motorway, so there's already some impact on visual amenity and those kind of things. The biodiversity improvements are really good. Skylark plan, not even mentioned in the report, but it's in detail in the applicants' submitted documents. Soil health improvements, really major nature, from avoiding the spraying for 40 years, 30, 40 years, and improvements to things like butterflies and bees and all that sort of stuff. Good screening arrangements. The public right of way does go across the site, so obviously it's a bit ugly to look at solar panels, but you get significant improvements in the wildlife you see when you're walking along that path. There will be a lot more butterflies than there would be on a monocultured crop sprayed to death. The contribution to community, I know we can't take it into consideration, but it's not insignificant that there's a promise of 800,000 over a 40-year period going into the community. So the community is getting something. And I note that there is nobody here from the community objecting in person. We've had people who have rightly been very concerned and very passionate about the impact on their community. This community has not chosen to come here today. So I think that has an impact on judgment of what level of impact it's having on them. The site management plan looks to me very good. No spraying for 30, 40 years. That has a real impact on long-term soil health, and we are at risk of our soils becoming depleted seriously. So I think that's very strong. Again, obviously we're losing the agricultural land, and it is disappointing that there is not more detail obtained. I know it's not something we can condition, but it's something members are pretty passionate about. So I really would appreciate it if officers would question in detail and give us at least a summary of what the plans are to provide food production on the site using alternative methods such as sheep grazing, and I referred to fruit trees, etc. So that's a negative. The other thing is that there isn't detail. I think Councillor Peacock makes a very good point about the maintenance plan. So I'm going to propose approval, but I'm also going to ask for us to add a condition that says prior to commencement, a maintenance plan for the site shall be submitted to NYC and approved in writing. Because I don't see why we shouldn't be asking to see that maintenance plan and being sure we're comfortable with it in the broadest sense we are able legally to obtain, and I'll leave that to officers. So I'm saying,
just before you move on, is that the highway as well, or just...
Exactly. So I'm saying it's up to you to determine what it should cover, but I'm suggesting that I'm proposing approval on the condition that we add one condition: prior to commencement, a maintenance plan for the site shall be submitted to North Yorkshire Council and approved in writing.
That was the application, but just for making a decision today, the fact that nobody from the community has turned up, whilst I appreciate that from a human perspective, that's not a material planning consideration. So just purely a legal clarification.
didn't realise it said my name. Well, actually, I don't really need to say that because that was more what I was looking for, which was the access, that we have something there. And I'm especially concerned because in 40 years as well, when it has to be put back, it needs to be, the whole of that field and everything needs to be back to where it should be. So I'm quite happy with what Andy said by adding that on.
Is that a second?
Yeah.
So we've got a proposal and a second. We'll keep moving. Councillor Castanet, please.
Beat me to it, Chair.
Councillor Timothy.
I was also going to second.
Oh,
Yeah, this is, you know, it's none of the agricultural land is a higher grade than grade 3A. As Councillor Brown says, this is around a fast motorway. Yeah, I'm to back his proposal.
Right. Emma, would you like to check with Councillor Brown?
So in relation to the maintenance condition that you are wanting to add to the list of conditions, we already have obviously a construction management plan for the highways condition. There is a landscape management plan within the submitted details, which is can be part of the condition. What else in addition to that? Is it purely to do with the surveying of the conditions of the road beforehand, or can I just be clear?
I'd like to see them clear about the condition of the road. I'd also like to see them clear about how the panels themselves, the grass around them, etc., is going to be maintained, and how fences, basically I'll leave it to you and the applicant to sort out the details, but I do think we need a proper maintenance plan of something of this nature.
That's what I was looking for. Proper.
We've had Councillor Timothy. Councillor Swanwick, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was also going to be happy to second this proposal, but it seems to have been seconded about 5 or 6 times already, so I'm not going to fight anybody for that privilege. Just to make 2 points really. One is that on all these applications, we're being asked to consider a balance of benefit versus harm. And I have to say on this one, my feeling is that the balance is very much in favour of the benefit, without much in the pan on the other side of the scales to do with harm. I think the officers have presented a case which shows that there are there's a very small or inconsiderable amount of harm addressing this, especially since Natural England have quite unequivocally stated that there is no loss of valuable land for growing food. My second point arises from the question I asked, which is about the location of the grid connection, which is always a factor in these applications. And I think the fact that this particular grid connection is now at capacity, as has been stated by the applicant, gives us 2 conclusions. One is that, as Councillor Brown has already pointed out, that this puts a cap on this particular grid connection for future applications coming forward in the near future anyway. And that must be of some relief to local residents, that there aren't going to be a string of further applications coming forward that they're going to have to deal with. But secondly, it also points to the fact, which a point that I've made at several of these discussions about solar farms and battery storage, is that the government has really got to get its act together in terms of putting in place connections throughout the country, which are determined more by the most suitability for the renewable energy generation than by the fact that there is some historic reason why there is a grid connection in place. Because the consequence in every case is that developers cluster around these grid connections, and residents locally, for very understandable reasons, don't think it's fair that they're getting.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Chairman. Looking at the application, I mean, it accords with several local and national policies. The national policies really are behind renewables and carbon reduction and meeting net zero targets. I've said before, you can agree with those policies or you can disagree with them. Some people are very much in favour, some people are sceptical. But no matter what your position is, if you're a member of this committee, you have to look at things, that are in front of you. So looking at the application, the things that concern me are the loss of the land. It's grade 3A land. It's the best value land. And, we talk about energy security, which is something that, we need to strive for, but we need food security as well. We take away this land for 40 years. You can say it's temporary, but 40 years is a long time. A lot can happen in 40 years. We have another war in 40 years. So you've got to think about all these things, which I think are important. And you have another site 400 meters away. Again, I'm not sure what the loss of land in terms of its value was on that application. It's not material to this, but this is cumulative impact that I am concerned about. And this loss of the best value land, I think, is a concern. Previously, when we've looked at these applications, I have been very much in favour of looking at the land value and trying to prioritise applications in terms of the lowest grade land being preferred, because that balances, in my mind, any advantage of the renewables and the energy security against future food security. So those are my concerns here on this application. However, I do recognise that there is the existing substation, and the site, can be connected to that fairly easily, and we understand at the moment that it will probably therefore limit any future applications. So you're kind of concentrating it in this area. I think Councillor Brown also makes the point, which I also picked up on. I know it's not material, but we don't have a lot of objectors here in person, and usually on these kind of applications, if there is a very, very strong sentiment, there will be a large crowd. It's not material, but it's something that I have also recognised today. So as far as is concerned, I am, a little bit reluctant based on the loss of the best value land, but I can support the application, and I would support what Councillor Brown has put forward as an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no more debate, we have a proposal and a second for the motion to accept officer's recommendation. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, hang on. I'm in trouble again.
No, not at all. I just want to check. We've got the wording of the condition right, Councillor Brown.
Oh, right. Emma?
I don't know if Emma's got something, but I've got something along the lines of and a maintenance plan shall be submitted to, excuse me, my voice is going, and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The plan shall include as a minimum a condition survey of the highway maintainable of public expense, provision of the maintenance of fencing and boundary treatment, maintenance of the land, including access tracks. Is that right? I just want to check with the planners though that they're absolutely comfortable. Yes.
Right, everybody seems to be happy with that. So we're back to
no, that's fine.
Oh,
carry on.
All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. Motion carried. There's no other business of the chair. Next meeting, 12th of August. Thank you very much, everybody. Meeting closed.